Canadian pilot went up for his solo night exercise before leaving Fraserburgh to go on to the next stage of his training. He was in an Oxford trainer plane.
This is the true story of an unlikely World War II survival.
And he went up on a very nasty night because he was the last to go up and he didn't want to be left behind by his mates moving on.
A tale of a man who came within about 2 metres of a tragic premature death, who instead began an enduring friendship between families across 2 continents.
He came down through the clouds, saw this island with a ring of white round it, and came in over the cliffs here, bent his rudder on the way in because it was stair rods of rain and he couldn't have his lights on because they were reflecting back.
Welcome back to Owskerry, a tiny and remote island in Orkney off the north coast of Scotland. It's a place of natural beauty and incredible history. In the last episode, the county archaeologist of the Orkney Islands came to help further our understanding of the island's past. In this episode, we'll learn a lot more about prehistoric field boundaries and 12th century religion on the island.
Because I'm standing on what seems to be the curvilinear stone bank, enclosing the chapel.
Yeah, so.
And that makes it nice and early.
This is On to Other News. It's 1943. The Second World War is raging around Europe. Except to assist Allied convoys, the light didn't shine then, so as not to encourage enemy fighters. And yet there is a crater that's still visible to this day, where a bomb was dropped on the lighthouse, but thankfully missed. But the most incredible wartime tale from this island stems from Allied actions.
Eventually came to land here. This was as near as we know.
Yeah.
We certainly found bits of the wreckage here, but whether the RAF moved it a bit before they burnt it. But the photograph shows him to be very near.
Incredibly, this is an image of Canadian pilot Don Franco's plane after he'd crash-landed here.
That stone, it's in the photograph.
Did he survive?
He not only survived, but it was dead of night, just before Christmas.
Yeah.
And a seagull had embedded itself on the wing as he came.
Oh no.
So he took that into the cockpit in case there was nothing else to eat.
Yeah.
Wrapped himself in his silk parachute and apparently went to sleep. First light in the morning at about 5 or whatever, he got out to have a look around and he saw these 2 guys approaching. The 2 keepers.
If it wasn't for a letter sent by the lighthouse keeper George Mainland, pictured here with his wife Teen, my mum would never have had the pilot's name to track him down decades after the crash.
The principal had said to the assistant, "We're not taking a gun and we're not taking a telescope in case he thinks it's a gun. We don't know whether it's a German or whatever." He was here for 2 weeks over Christmas with the lighthouse keepers.
This was the ship sent by the RAF to pick Don up after he'd spent Christmas on the island. The lighthouse keeper's wife had knitted him a pair of socks as a present, and with rationing across Britain, Don later commented on how much of a treat it was to eat eggs from the chickens kept on the island.
Subsequently, we found the pilot. He was still alive. And he came to visit with his wife and daughter. And it was a very nostalgic visit for him. Very emotional.
Wow.
This was Don back in the lighthouse flat where he'd spent those days in 1943. His first words to the lighthouse keepers who walked up the hill to see him were, "Where am I?" He was relieved to hear he was still in Scotland, and they were glad to hear his Canadian accent rather than a German one. That visit was so special for my family. You can see my oldest brother Rory standing on the left and my middle brother Owen facing away, both wearing Canadian hats that they brought with them, and we still have to this day. Here's Don during that visit returning to the cliffs where he so nearly met his end. Instead, more than half a century later, he was able to sit down for dinner with his wife Lottie and their daughter Betty at our family home in Owskerry. At no more than 3 years old, I appear to have been more excited by a bottle of water, but given we collect water from a natural spring on Owskerry, perhaps that's to be expected.
And then last summer, his son came to visit with his family. We had a fabulous... Franco. And his grandson brought a coin put underneath it.
That's lovely.
And with that amazing story passed on...
Well, Jamie needs to give it a what 3 words, doesn't he?
We're off to look at more of the older sites on the island.
I'm thinking we'll go to the grave, then up to the D and ring-shaped habitation up at Gersen,
Right.
walk the length of the dyke, and then go over to the Kist.
Okay.
But this is really great that you came.
Oh, well, I mean, just thank you for inviting me. Also thoroughly enjoyed it.
For many years we've not known exactly what all these things are, or we've been pontificating about it.
Lots of pontificating about it, yep.
What do you make of it now we've got the county archaeologist around?
Well, it's really interesting, partly because a lot of these sites I've been over before with other archaeologists, but it's interesting that every time you go over it you learn more things, you get another perspective on the site. And the whole thing about the burnt man, I feel as if I've got a better handle on it now. And I was trying to explain it the other day. I wasn't completely sure about some of the aspects of it, so that's been really good.
Exciting.
It's very exciting, because it gives you a much clearer picture of how the other folk in the line of habitation have lived here.
Sorry, I had to stop. I can't walk and write at the same time. I had to go lump with some stones in. Mystery. And that was about it.
So here's the mariner's grave.
Ah, okay. Scale person, please.
Do you want it lying down?
Well, you could do.
Ta-da!
No, you have to lie in it, Faye.
I'm not lying in it, it's creepy. Lie on top of it. You did lay in it.
I did.
Well, only if they're alive. But it's interesting that, yeah, it's close enough to the sea. Like, because all the sailors' graves are close to the sea because they're tend not to be buried in kirkyards. They're buried close to the sea because the sea will come back to collect its own. And so you bury them close to the sea because you don't want to lose too much land. I'm not aware of any of those things actually having happened, but, but that was
That's
belief.
fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
After picturing the mariner's grave, we're going to look at another place where a human settlement once stood. This one probably dates back to the Bronze Age.
Oh, okay. This is the pair of opposed Bronze Age houses.
Yeah.
See, I recognised it immediately. We've got 2 houses here, opposing doorways. So doorway there. And these are a classic Bronze Age form that you also get in Shetland, and you get these kind of cultural exchanges that seem to indicate sailing between and cultural contact with Shetland more than mainland Scotland. And this double Bronze Age house is one example of that. So there's this is kind of a Shetlandic indicator of contact between Orkney and Shetland in the Bronze Age, which you had much less of in the Neolithic.
So why were there a pair?
That seems to be how they... I wasn't there, I didn't ask them. Maybe it is actually 2 houses, you know, with 2, you know, with offspring or close relatives kind of thing.
The important thing is to record things that haven't been recorded before, or the extent of them. I mean, some of the things that we've learned today have been really interesting and spreading new light on where the irises grow and what that sheds light on for us.
We're en route now to the Gersen Dyke, the remains of a dry stone wall possibly built in the prehistoric era to separate livestock from crops. It's now only visible as a largely subsurface scar on the landscape.
So this is the start of the Gersen Dyke.
Ah, oh blimey.
You can see how clear it is in the landscape.
Yes. Gosh, good grief.
So if we walk along it and then we'll go just take a detour to the Kist.
Well, Raymond would have you, these huge long land divisions are prehistoric. You know, like treb dikes and things, but it's not necessarily the case for this one, because most of the treb dikes are massive earthen dikes, and this one is a bit more low-lying and simple. But yeah, I mean, as to period, don't know. It'd be nice if it was prehistoric, certainly, but we'll never know unless we get
He
hands on
said
it.
to me that there'd be animals on one side, barley growing on the other.
Well, that's kind of more an infield outfield thing, so it depends if it's because this side's a smaller piece of land. You would want settlement in this smaller piece of land that they're then keeping animals out of on that side. So that would be the question.
How significant is something like the Gersen Dyke, just for laymen like me?
Well, it's only the last 20, 30 years maximum that people have started recognising land divisions going back 2,000, 3,000 years. Up until then, everybody was going, 18th, 19th century and maybe medieval. So if this happens to be prehistoric, then yeah, it's another one to add to the list, really. As scheduled monuments, you've certainly got Treb dykes recognised in Sandy and in North Ronaldsays. North Ronaldsays has two, dividing the island into three. Murdo Mackenzie's charts from 1750-ish, you know, the first proper charts of Orkney coastline and everything that are really accurate, he actually puts them on the map because they're still visible from the sea, because he's interested in what were useful as sea marks. So he'll put in the 2-3 story houses or the churches that were visible from the sea, but some of the Treb dykes are actually marked on Mackenzie's charts. God, it is tussocky, isn't it?
Well,
Wow.
to be fair, I mean, it used to be tussocks you could hide in easily.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the sheep have reduced them massively.
Ah. Okay, so it's kissed first and then chapel, is it?
Yeah,
Oh.
and then back to the boat.
Okay.
In archaeology, a kist is a small stone-built coffin-like box used to hold the bodies of the dead.
Very pretty lamb was born in here this year.
Oh,
Really?
In the kist?
Is that what you
Well, she used it as shelter. She gave birth in there.
No way.
And this is where the whale was washed up in 1771.
oh right.
A sperm whale that was then guarded
Yeah.
until they could take it to Stromsey, and they took it over to Hoosby.
Ah,
3 weeks. I think it was 15 men they took on. They dug a pit in the barn,
Yeah.
and it's well documented. Of course, it was the Trail Estate,
Yes.
and the amount of
And presumably there'd be
Stuff they-
fighting between the trails and the crown
yes, of
as
course.
to who got which best bits.
This is a part of the island where the Arctic terns very much feel it's their territory, not yours. I used to be so scared of being bombed by them as a child. I used to play football outside the house wearing a hard hat.
Please be careful, Hamish.
I am. It's been so fun doing this expedition today, and it's fantastic to be able to share it with you. As always, please give this video a like if you've enjoyed it. As well as my partner Faye, we have my cousin Jamie and his wife Marika visiting, plus family friend Michael has come out for the day. But with archaeologist Paul needing to head back on the boat soon, we're in a bit of a rush as we look at the final notable site of the day.
Surely we should make it a bit gothic, the church.
So obviously this is the 12th century. Is that, am I right in saying
Well,
that?
that's what he's thinking. I mean, is he going, come on now? Wow.
No.
Then Mum's phone rings, and it's my dad calling from Kirkwall on the Orkney mainland. He's not able to be on the island anymore due to ill health.
Hi guys.
Hi Teresa.
It's not really very possible for me to talk now because we're in the middle of this. But
Okay.
I could keep the phone on though, Simon. No, stay on the phone because you can come along with us and see what we're doing. But I'm just trying to explain about the Kirk at the minute, so just give me a minute.
Okay.
Here's Paul trying to take a photograph of the Kirk, I think, or writing notes.
Yeah, writing notes. Because
Can-
I'm standing on what seems to be the curvilinear stone bank,
Exactly what.
enclosing the chapel.
Yeah, so.
And that makes it nice and early.
And that is so clear now, isn't it?
It is
But
clear,
it wasn't
yeah.
before. No one had noticed it before.
Yeah. No, we're on it.
Simon-
You're on it.
Simon, you might remember when we first realised that there was something here because there was so much vegetation before, but now that it's kind of worn away.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really clear. Again, if we can get this on the drone as well, you probably will at really low light. It'll
be
really
very
show
clear.
it. Yeah, and it might be, I don't know if it's on that black and white aerial photograph or not.
I couldn't see it on there.
Right.
It wasn't showing up.
But it's definitely here. It's
Yeah.
absolutely here. So, yeah.
Good.
Yeah, no question.
Great. Okay.
And then the dike goes all the way along there.
Yeah.
All the way up to-
So that's the end of the Gersen Dyke. Yeah.
Oh, so that's interesting. So the Gersen Dyke comes to meet
Here.
this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which came first?
Which came first? So Simon, we're talking about the enclosure around the Kirk, which you were the first to spot a
Yeah.
few years ago. You know, the one that goes down here where Michael is. It comes down to the stones at the end, and all these stones. And Paul's confirming that you're right. So that's nice to know, isn't it?
Yeah, very nice. I loved being able to be determinated about it because you weren't sure.
Yep, it's absolutely real. You often get these enclosure dikes around chapel sites. So yeah, you can see it going there, you can see the bank going right around, and then that's the Gersen Dyke coming in to meet. Question is there a phasing that we can't see of one being earlier than the other, or are they the same period, or, you know, that we don't know. That we don't know.
I think the Stone Dyke would be the same period as the church.
This stone dyke will, but not the Gersen Dyke necessarily. Yeah,
It's earlier.
yeah. Well, it tends to be, but we don't actually have proof. But it's the kind of thing I would go like, it's
Like I
most
said
likely to
Jamie,
be.
this isn't
Yeah.
a lot of bloody digging for now.
So we're just walking down now. We're going back to the boat because Andy's waiting to take them away. Paul was saying the preservation's very good because it's never been ploughed.
Right. Yeah.
And of course, we've always loved all the archaeology, so we've always looked after it as best we can. Yeah.
We have. And it looks, honestly, I know that the colouring that the camera's brought up, it looks a bit false to me. It looks too green and too ebullient.
I don't think it is, though. I think it is the colour's very bright.
But it is lovely to see it.
Yeah.
We all really miss Dad being on the island. He had 49 unbroken years here until this year, so it's a wrench not having him here. But with the power of technology, being able to video call him on a day like this is really special. And with that, it's just about time to wave Paul goodbye.
It's been fantastic. It's the first time I've been to Ascari, and the preservation is marvellous. It's really good. I mean, the stonework is extraordinary. The range of periods of sites are extraordinary. You seem to have from Neolithic, possibly, certainly Bronze Age, through to medieval chapel. And also, I didn't have time to see the wartime stuff or the lighthouse properly. So the whole range is like Orkney in microcosm. It's quite extraordinary.
It's significant to have all the things close together, isn't it? You know?
Well, it is. It's lovely. You know, I mean, it is. You know, what, 1.5 kilometres by a kilometre, the island, and it's just amazing that you've got an example of virtually most things in there. You've got standing stones, you've got a burnt mound, you've got Christian chapel, you've got Iron Age sites, certainly, possible Neolithic tomb, possibly. Similar scenario of a mound by the sea that's a bit like where Isbister Tomb of the Eagles is, but of course there's no holes in it, so we can't tell if it's a tomb or not. But its location is very similar. But it's been a fantastic jog around the island, essentially, and I'm coming back.
Good. That's great.
Well, Teresa said I can, so that's it.
Okay, we'll see you again. Thank you so much, Paul.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You've got everything. Yeah, you've got your poles. Thank you very, very much for coming.
I mean, thank you so much for inviting me, and I hope it's the first of
Yes, great.
times.
Great.
You know.
Thank you so much, it was amazing. It was like oh, they're lovely, aren't they?
Do the seals.
After an amazing day of thinking about the history of the place, Jamie is quite right to put us back into the here and now.
That was really cool. We need to let the sheep in the pen.
And with that, Paul, Michael and boatman Andy draw away from the pier. And that's it for this episode. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Cheerio.